Hello, my name is Tyler Brownrigg, and welcome back to another episode of Nighttime. Today's show, we're going to be talking UCF men's soccer and their recap of how their poor performance in the tournament. Then we're going to be previewing UCF men's basketball, and then finally, we'll close it off with some talking about the college football playoff rankings. So stay tuned because Nighttime starts right now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome back to Nighttime, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And we're going to start it off with our UCF men's soccer team. And we're here with Nick and Jared. And I just want to get right into it. You guys don't have to say hi. But they lost 2-1 to South Carolina in the first game of the Sunbelt Conference Tournament. And Jared, I just want to start with you. What went wrong for the Knights in this game, and how did they fall after, they've had a great season?
I mean, you said it best. They just absolutely fell, and it's been absolutely disappointing since we were ranked #1 in the country, and since then we've just lost ever since. So losing to South Carolina, is just an absolute shame. And my spotlight player is actually Luca Dorado. He had 7 shots and couldn't make a single one. And our problem was that we allowed 2 goals in the first half and then didn't even score at all in the first half. We just only had 1 goal in the second half. So it sucks that we are, already out of the tournament. So we'll see what our future has for us.
Yeah, I mean, from unranked to #1 to being out in the first round of the playoffs, I mean, it was quite a journey for the team. The UCF men's soccer team won 3-2 against South Carolina in the regular season, but as we mentioned, lost 2-1 with Anderson Rosso scoring the only goal in the second half for UCF. It was disappointing for sure.
And I think something that is kind of notable, they did play South Carolina in the regular season, and it was only a short time ago, and we won. And it is hard to beat the same team twice in a short time period because, you get to know them. And it's just a tougher game for the Knights. But still, they were at home. It's a disappointing loss. But Tyler, what do you think is next? Obviously, we have the selection show coming up. But do you think they're going to be seeded in the tournament?
I think without a question, UCF will still be seeded in the tournament. After all, this team was ranked #1 in the country at one point, unanimously. And now, despite losing 2 in a row since that ranking, they've fallen down to 12. So it's still a top 15. But I think, the expectation was, they're going to probably run the table in the conference tournament, get to Marshall at the end. But they'll likely, I imagine, be somewhere in the teens at worst to probably bottom of the top 10, I think, is where they finish off in the rankings. Now, obviously, they still have a hope for a national title. Now, Nick, who is a player that has been great this season and you think is going to need to step up their game in the tournament to help the Knights really bounce back?
So my spotlight player is Saku Heiskanen. He's 5'7", I'm 5'7". He's a freshman, I'm a freshman. Really the only difference between us is minor athletic ability. But he was great this season. He won Sunbelt Conference Freshman of the Year. He had 4 goals and 2 assists. I think men's soccer is in good hands for the next couple years because he was great this season.
And then, Jared, I know we're predicting a tournament seed. I want to know your prediction, and then are you expecting a bounce-back run in the tournament? Same with you, Nick.
So it's rough to say because we went from being ranked #1 to now we're ranked #12, and it's just we're on this losing streak that I don't know if we're going to be able to shake. Hopefully we're playing with a chip on our shoulder coming up, and I think that we'll still be ranked, I think like Tyler said, probably around somewhere in the teens, probably around 15, 16, around there. But like I said, hopefully we're playing with that chip on our shoulder and we can have a major bounce back for the NCAA tournament.
I would agree. I think we can bounce back a little bit. Not win it all. I mean, if they go on a run, Maybe they'll have some momentum, but Marshall just looks amazing. But, after losing 2 in a row, I do think they can bounce back in the tournament.
Tyler, do you think the Knights are going to perform better as more of an underdog story as opposed to, having all the pressure on them?
I think so. This is a very talented Knights team, like I've been saying. They were, again, still ranked number 1. And being ranked in a lower seed might actually help them because they'll be playing against some more inferior competition early on in the tournament. So they might be able to help them get back into a rhythm, have their guys start scoring like Luca Dorado, Saku, and of course my favorite Emmanuel Bam. I love him. But that is sadly all the time we have to talk about soccer. And right now I'm going to jump it into my nightlight. She is a player for the UCF women's basketball team who just won their first game. And that's all I'm going to tell you. And you'll learn who she is after this commercial.
Hello, my name is Ty Patton, and I am a licensed sports therapist. And today I'm here to help 3 people cope with their misfortunate teams. Maddie, when was the last time the Bears won anything?
I don't think I've ever experienced that feeling.
Maddie, the MVP is not a real award.
But it was voted on.
By kids, Maddie.
Yeah, it was a real award, and I think that's one thing that we can, we made history with that moment. We don't have to talk about Trubisky or the draft because I really don't like to think about that. It really just makes me, I'm sorry.
Now, Maddie, is Mitch Trubisky still with the team?
No. I'm not sure he's in the NFL.
You
I know Mahomes is, and he was drafted ahead of him. Actually, Mitch Trubisky, it was a bad one. And now we have Justin Fields, who I have belief in. And the worst thing about sports, it's the hope it gives you.
Maddie, at times like this, sometimes we as fans like to hold on to what was.
Yeah,
but
my dad still talks about the 85 Bears like it was yesterday. I texted him yesterday. I was like, how about this Bears game? And he was just like, this is so sad. I watched with my neighbor's lifelong Bears fan. I watched with them. It was just, you can't describe the feelings that were showcased in that living.
If you couldn't figure it out, my nightlight was Caitlin Peterson. In the Knights' first win, she dropped 31 points, a career high, an absolute stellar performance, and a great way for the UCF women's team to open the season.
Yeah, and the women's team actually was incredible in this game. They scored 101 points and just absolutely crushed Bethune Cookman. But now we're going to transition into men's basketball, and we are here with Kirsten and Andrew. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Feeling pretty excited to talk basketball.
Me too. I always love talking basketball, and this men's team is looking really interesting.
Yeah, they played their first game of the season against FIU and won 82-65. It was a dominant performance. I know they shot 50% from the field. They didn't shoot that well from 3, but they forced 24 turnovers. And the Knights have 10 new players on this team. We had a lot of outgoing. We had a lot of transfers. Obviously, Taylor Hendricks was drafted, but we have some new faces in Orlando. So, Kirsten, I want to start with you. Who is a potential impact player that you think can really help our team this year?
So I want to talk a little bit about DeMar Langford Jr. He came from Boston College. He was a junior last year. He's a senior this year. Last year, he was averaging 7 points a game, and he had 7 games where he scored over double digits in one game. This year, he played off with them for like 26 minutes when they played against FIU, and he made 5 points. Now, last year, he had a 44.2% shooting percentage, so I'm sure as he has more time with the Knights this year that, you know, he'll be putting up those numbers, and he'll be a big asset. I was watching back his transfer portal tapes, and, you know, once he has the ball, he kind of just owns it. So I really look forward to watching him this year on the team.
Yeah, I love that pick. I think he can be really impactful. And then, Tyler, we'll go to you. Who do you think can be really good for us this year?
I think a player who's really going to make a lot of impact is Shamari Allen, who is a guard who just transferred in. He came in with the highest points per game average out of all these players, coming in at 17 points per game. He also averaged over 5 rebounds, just under 3 assists, and averaged over 2 steals a game. He is a great two-way guard, which I think is an outstanding thing to have. And he's an efficient scorer, great from long range. And I think the backcourt that he will form with your player, Maddie, which you'll talk about in a second, I think will really it's going to be what this Knights team needs to really maybe exceed expectations and go far this season?
Yeah, and I'll get to Andrew, but my player who shined on opening night, it is guard Jalen Sellers. He transferred from Ball State and is just a dynamic scoring guard and an excellent shooter, which we could really use. He was second in three-point percentage in the MAC conference last season and is shooting 45% from three for his career. And I think just watching him, you can see how explosive he is. You can see he is that scoring guard that you need in college basketball. You need good guards.
He is that guy.
I think our guard play really determines how your season is going to go. And if we have these good guards, we can go we can have a better season than expected. And so I'm excited to see how well he performs. And he was really fun to watch. I know he had that amazing and one dunk. I don't know if you saw that, Andrew, but tell me about your player.
Yeah, no, I didn't see Sellers' dunk, but I did see the head top on highlight reels for a while after the game. But once again, going into my highlight player, we just lost Taylor Hendricks, right? And that's going to take away a lot of our, not just three-point spacing, but most importantly, our shot blocking ability. The Knights just got a 7-foot, 246 monster from Senegal, actually from San Jose State, previously Ohio State, and Ibrahima Diallo. And no, if you're thinking about his last name, he's not related to the 2019 dunk contest winner, Hamidou Diallo.
I was thinking that, actually.
I did some research. I pulled a Mason, and I couldn't find any traces, so we're just going to go with that for now. But in his one game as a Knight, he dropped 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 blocks, 1 steal, 3 of 4 shooting in 11 minutes, which is pretty solid. And in San Jose State, which is where he shined the most out of his 2 former teams, dropping 6.7 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 1.6 blocks, which is crazy, on top of 54.3% shooting from the field. He's a great rim protector. He's also a tremendous lob threat, especially in transition. The only thing I would have to knock against him is his athletic ability. As a 7-footer, he doesn't have to jump much to get a dunk, but it would help if he got a bit more vertical, a bit more athleticism on that end, just so he would be that monstrosity of a lob threat, especially when you have someone like Jalen Sellers to run the other wing on transition.
Yeah, and these are just some players. We obviously have 6 more newcomers. So I want to get into some expectations for the season. Obviously, the Knights are in the Big 12 Conference, who is probably the best conference in college basketball, and they were picked to finish last in the Big 12 in the preseason poll. So, Andrew, what do you think is going to happen for the Knights this season? Do you expect a, competitive season?
I don't expect much out of UCF. Again, we are undergoing a bit of a rebuild considering we just lost a handful of players in Taylor Hendricks and Theo Horton. But after our last performance, I do have a little bit of faith, especially in like Jalen Sellers and DJ, Darius Johnson, Tyler Hendricks even. Hopefully he steps into the vacated shoes that his brother left behind. But yeah, overall, I think it's going to be competitive. There are teams like Kansas, Texas, Kansas State, Baylor, TCU, Iowa State, West Virginia. And if our performance last season, at least in terms of record, was placed into this year's standings, last year's standings, we would be tied for 3rd worst team in the conference. So I don't think there's going to be much going on. Also, all the teams that I just mentioned did make March Madness. Of course, we didn't. So I don't see us making it this year, but hopefully in the future we will have a decent run.
And then I think it's really important for us to get off to a good start in our non-conference schedule. And looking at the schedule, the only games that stick out to me as losses are Miami and maybe Ole Miss. Tyler, what do you think our record is going to be in these 10 games non-conference schedule?
I think UCF can definitely come out of this at worst 500. UCF beat Miami last year, and that was a Final Four team. Now, obviously, had Taylor Hendricks. And I think for UCF, in order to do this, come out at least 500 or better, is the issue that they've always had, at least that I've noticed the past 2 years, is rebounding. Every UCF basketball game I have gone to, I've always complained, why can't this team get a rebound? And I know Johnny Dawkins likes to go small ball with his guards in his lineup, but this is why I really liked Andrew's impact player, Diallo, a 7-footer. Just get a guy who could just sit under the basket and get boards both offensively and defensively, give UCF more possessions. That is how we'll compete with these more talented teams like Kansas or Houston and even Texas. So that is what needs to happen. Rebounding is their key issue that they need to solve.
Kirsten, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for the Knights as they move to the Big 12 Conference?
I mean, last year they struggled, so I'm keeping my expectations low because, if you don't have high expectations, you can't be disappointed. But I think a big challenge this year is going to be kind of just having so many new players, finding the gel, like how they all fit together, and seeing what kind of team they're going to be this year, after losing so many people and getting so many guys who come from different schools who were good but now being on a team together, how do they work together?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think just for right now, take it one game at a time, win the games you are meant to win, and be competitive in the ones that you're going against a team who is just out-talent you. But I'm going to move on to my nightlight. Thank you guys for joining us for that segment. He is a UCF running back who had a career performance last game in our first conference win of the season against Cincinnati. See if you can guess before we come back.
To HCF Hot Takes. I'm Johnny Jackson. We've got Emily Aaron to my right and Maluka Costa to my left.
Hello and welcome to our segment of Hot Ones. I'm here with Noah Kemper and Grant
Wheeler.
Yep, I knew that. Grant Wheeler.
Listen, I'm a Bulls fan, but I just can't ever argue against LeBron. I watched him my whole life.
I've been going back and forth with this debate for a long time. It's got to be Michael Jordan.
Whatever she wanted. I would wake up in a maid costume for Doja Cat.
Brutal.
Jeffrey Laux, no question.
Richie, I would give it to Richie.
It is not Richie. It is not Richie.
No, it's Jeff.
Richie's pronouns are he, they, because he cannot be him.
What?
Oh, wait a second.
I'm going to have to also agree and say Jeff. He always is spiffy.
It might be Cameron. Cameron's had some good fits.
Out of the women, Norelli always dresses really, really cute.
Oh, that went so awful.
It's basketball.
College football, I think, is the best sport to watch. If you don't like soccer, it's because you suck at it.
I think college football is the best.
Thanks for watching.
It is running back RJ Harvey, who won the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week award for his amazing performance. He had 164 rushing yards on 20 carries with 3 touchdowns in the win. Now, sticking with football, we're here with Camden and Justice. Welcome, guys, into the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk football.
I'm so happy to be on with you. When I saw at the beginning of the week that I was on with you, I was like, ooh, me and Justice. Okay, I'm so excited.
All right, so let's start talking about college football. And there was a lot of big things that happened. And, of course, we'll get the elephant out of the room, the biggest upset of this past week.
Notre Dame.
My Oklahoma Sooners losing Bedlam for the final time against Oklahoma State. Justice, what went wrong for us?
It was the last installment of the Bedlam rivalry, and it was a good one. The game was fairly matched throughout, but it was big 3 turnovers that were kind of self-inflicted by Oklahoma. That was their demise. They had a fumbled handoff, a fumbled snap, and a pass that Dylan Gabriel probably regretted immediately as he threw it that became an interception. The Cowboys also had 4 less penalties, and they had possessed the ball 15 more minutes than the Sooners, which could be accredited a great run game. Ollie Gordon toted the rock 33 times for 138 yards and found the end zone twice. But yeah, I mean, it was just a great win for Oklahoma State and their program. It was the 100th Big 12 win for Mike Gundy, which puts him in a group of 2 other coaches, Bill Snyder, and ironically, the longtime Sooners head coach Bob Stoops.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah. Pretty good win for the Cowboys, I'd say.
Great win for the Cowboys. Everyone won that weekend. I was so happy.
Listen, I understand there was a lot of self-inflicted wounds with Oklahoma, a lot of deep balls they didn't connect, but that pass interference no call at the end on Nick Anderson, listen, it mattered, and that should have been pass interference. It was clearly he was being tackled. Should have been an automatic first down. Oklahoma probably wins the game based on how Gary Sawchuk was running against this Cowboys defense. But I digress.
You sound a lot like Phil right now.
You want to be like it was the one bad ref thing. That's it.
Okay, we don't bash refs on the show.
Never.
But Camden, I want to ask you, where does this leave Oklahoma? You know, they had these real expectations. They beat Texas. Oh my God, they won the Big 12, but they didn't. Lost 2 games in a row. Struggled against the Knights. So, what do you think is next for them? Obviously, they're moving to the SEC, but what's next for them this season?
Exactly what people probably thought was going to happen. I was the idiot that put them in the playoffs.
You did.
I did put them in the playoffs.
You might have to run a clown nose for
I
that.
believed in you, Tyler, but you know what? After that Texas game, you guys didn't look the same. Texas looks like the new clear favorite to win the Big 12. And, I mean, Oklahoma, you see their games against Kansas, you see the games against Oklahoma State, and it's like, what happened, buddy? Like, what we all hyped ourselves up after this huge win. You went to the game against Texas, and then womp womp, two losses in a row.
And it's something that the committee kind of foreshadowed with their first rankings release. They had Texas over Oklahoma and Alabama, who they beat, but Oklahoma beats Texas.
And Tyler ranted about that one big time.
Texas is on top.
At the time, it did matter. But I will say this, Texas needs Quinn Ewers back if they want to, A, compete for the Big 12 and even think about sniffing a national title hope. Because Malik Murphy is not it. They struggled against K-State.
Yeah.
So, and Oklahoma can still get into the Big 12 title game, say if Oklahoma State drops a game to UCF or something. So they're not like over in that regard, but their playoff hopes are dead in the water.
And then another upset we have, Clemson did beat Notre Dame. Justice, can you tell me a little bit about this game? What went wrong for Notre Dame?
Not really. I can't.
Okay, Camden, can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, I got you.
Sam Hartman sucked.
You guys know what happened? I bet on Notre Dame to cover by 3 points, and they did not. So
that's why you don't gamble, kids.
I don't gamble, no, guys. It was hypothetical money that I'm not allowed to gamble. So it was. I mean, Clemson. You saw the thing with Tyler from Spartanburg, right, from the beginning of the week.
It was not me.
It was not that Tyler. It was another
Tyler from Spartanburg.
So pretty much, I don't know. I'm just gonna say it really quick. This guy called the radio show and was like, "Dabo, why are you getting paid so much money to lose games?" And he was like, "Don't you come over here and tell me blah blah blah, all that stuff." And then Clemson comes out and kind of, I don't want to say thrashes Notre Dame, but they were clearly dominating them throughout the first 3 quarters before Notre Dame had that late run, thanks to, I believe, a couple turnovers by Clemson. But just beating a team in Clemson's hard. Ask Florida State. It's not easy to do, especially though Clemson is struggling this year. So it's just a tough win.
So Notre Dame is still ranked. They're 23rd. Tyler, do you think they should still be ranked or no?
No, you lost to what is now 5-4 Clemson team, unranked, 4 losses. Notre Dame is their 3rd loss of the year. I understand it's Death Valley, it was on the road, but you're just not you're not a top 25 team in the country. A 3-loss team, and they're not even the only 3-loss team in the top 25. I believe Arizona also has 3 losses. LSU as well still. That's SEC bias, so that one I can kind of understand. But a team like I think Tulane's better than Notre Dame at this point. We can agree with that and say it. 1-loss Tulane deserves to be ranked over a 3-loss Notre Dame at this point. I think that's fair to say if based on how the committee has been ranking teams, because record seems to be the determining factor, especially at the top end of the rankings. Wouldn't you agree, Camden? Justice?
Sure, yeah.
So why shouldn't that be consistent throughout their entire top 25?
Dude,
Let's actually get into
I think
some
almost
more,
that the committee is kind of putting Notre Dame on a pedestal just to,
Don't you say it.
just to make Ohio State a
you
number
say
one.
it.
Just to
Make
make
more
Ohio
sense.
State look better? Oh my goodness, what a surprise. The committee wants their darling child, Ohio State, to be the number 1 team in the nation still. Is it really the best resume?
Yes.
Okay, let's get into
3-loss Notre Dame?
Okay, so we
Now you're probably gonna
had the second week of our playoff rankings come out. The top 8 did not change, so Ohio State still stays number 1. Yeah. So we should talk about this actually. So before the rankings came out, did you expect that anything would change? Camden, did you expect Ohio State to still be ranked number 1?
Camden specifically, I thought that they were not going to be ranked number 1 because I thought that the gap between Georgia and Ohio State was small enough as it is, and then Georgia beating a top 10 team at the time, or top 12, whatever they were, Missouri, would propel them to be number 1, because that in itself would be an impressive win, which would kind of give them that edge over Ohio State. And then when I saw Ohio State was still number 1, I was like, oh, so they actually still value both of those wins. That just shows how much, no matter how bad you say Ohio State's looked, they do value Ohio State's schedule, and they value the resume. They value all that stuff that goes into it, probably their defense as well, which a lot of people don't give them credit for. So yes, I was surprised. Did not expect Ohio State to still be number 1, but hey, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, I might complain. Georgia apparently gets their first ranked win of the season, but they had already beaten a ranked 20 Kentucky early in October.
Okay, so if you're going to say that, then Ohio State beat a top 10 Notre Dame on the road.
I will say that.
Okay, you can't have it both ways, where Georgia beat a top 20 team and Ohio State didn't beat top 10 Notre Dame.
Yeah, but people are calling this the first ranked win for Georgia, and I just think
What's
that's
Kentucky
false.
now?
Kentucky is unranked.
Okay.
Kentucky is
And
unranked.
that, that's what they're going to call it. But I think, beating a team so bad that it knocks them out of the rankings is pretty good justification for them being the number 1 team in the country.
And I think another thing is there's another point of contention that is always is 4 and 5 with FSU and Washington. Do we like the committees staying the same there? Or do we think Washington getting a ranked win over USC deserves to push them over FSU?
I still think Washington has passed the eye test more than Florida State has, because Florida State did just struggle against Pitt. Granted, Pitt beat Louisville, I'm going to say, though, I believe Washington, with that win over Oregon, should give them that spot over Florida State. Because as of right now, Florida State's best win is that win against LSU, right? That still doesn't – I mean, is that still a good win? I mean, I assume it is.
Is Notre Dame still a good win for Ohio State?
I mean, they still have Penn State, so if you want to, we can go back and forth on
They
this.
still have one. But I will say this, the reason FSU did struggle against Pitt is they were without Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. So their offense really just was going to struggle a lot, especially passing-wise, still had Jordan Travis. But
okay, let's look ahead to this weekend, which is probably the biggest game of the weekend, I would say. Number 3 Michigan at number 11 Penn State. Michigan is finally playing a good opponent. But, I mean, Michigan has just been dominant this season, as we know. No opponent has had a first and goal against them. They're only letting up about a little over 6 points per game and are beating teams by an average of 24 points. So, tell me a little bit about this Michigan team, Camden. Do you think they're going to beat Penn State?
Absolutely. Are you kidding? I'm picking Michigan to win out until at least the Ohio State game. And I'll tell you right now, I said I'd do this. Sorry, I'm going to do this. If Michigan beats Ohio State, I'm going to come out with a Michigan shirt. I had to say that. Michigan, the weird thing is, Michigan last year was kind of known as this run-dominant team, but this year it's kind of flipped. They're way better of a passing team than people expect, and while their rushing is still top 30, it's not as good as it was last year. So Michigan, they're smothering defensively. I cannot find a flaw with their game. J.J. McCarthy's playing incredible.
Yeah, I think Penn State's defense might, make it a little bit tough for Michigan, but they're just a powerhouse right now. So I'm expecting Camden to be showing up with a Michigan shirt sometime in the coming
Luckily,
weeks.
that's not the game we're talking about. This Penn State game specifically.
Yeah.
So you both are taking Michigan to win this game?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm also taking Michigan. I think, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding them. This is going to be a prove-it game. This is their first good opponent they're even playing, so they're going to try and go all out, I believe, and, maybe propel them into the top 2 playoff spots if they win. We'll see.
Different.
Tyler, what do you think?
I will not be different. I've been drinking the Michigan Kool-Aid all season. I think J.J. McCarthy is one of the best, if not probably the best quarterback in college football right now. He is playing outstanding. He had the Bowling Green game where he had 3 turnovers, and he hasn't turned the ball over since.
That's stifling. Bowling Green defense. Don't even get me started on them.
So much better with the ball, making smart decisions, and this Michigan offense is just complete. Penn State might be without Chop Robinson still. That's a bit of a question. So that'd be a huge loss for their defense. I'm going with Michigan, proving that they are, in fact, the team to beat in the nation.
And then, okay, it is early. We're going to go back to the playoff rankings because we have a little bit of time left. Nighttime isn't going to be here in a few weeks. It's not going to be here during the playoff, actual college football playoffs. So give me your top 4 in order. What's it going to be? Do it quickly, but start with the boys on the couch.
I'll go first. It's going to be Georgia, Michigan, Washington, then Florida State.
Okay.
Dang. Okay. So obviously I'm gonna go Georgia. I'm gonna go Ohio State over Michigan because I have to. There's no way I'm not doing that. I think Texas is gonna make it when Ewers comes back healthy. I think Texas is gonna be able to win out and beat whoever they play in the Big 12 championship because I think Florida State's gonna get a loss somewhere in there. And then 4th team, Oregon. Oregon's gonna beat Washington again.
Tyler, what about you?
I think I'm going to be a little crazy with it. I'm going to go Michigan at number 1, Alabama at number 2, Georgia at number 3, and then Oregon number 4.
There's no way they're going to make Alabama and Georgia play in the playoffs. They wouldn't have them play a first-round matchup.
But I think they might do it again.
They never have. They never will.
Won't in the end.
Who is your 4th team?
Oregon.
Okay.
I think Oregon is the best team in the Pac-12.
They'll put Oregon above somebody else, but yeah. It's a good list.
Yes, I do like it too. Okay, that's all the time we have this week for Nighttime. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back next week. Yes, and then we'll go to Thanksgiving, so we won't be back the week after that. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks to everyone in production, and we will see you later.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.